Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. All praise is due to Allah, Rabbil Alameen, the Lord of all the worlds. I want to begin by expressing our thanks once again and our welcome to our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. Once again, I am pleased to be your host, coming to you through the Salam media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news, we advise you on what you can do about it. Last week, the title of our program was International Jurists Speak. What comes next? The focus of that conversation was on the Spirit of Mandela International Tribunal that took place in New York City a couple of months ago. I was privileged to give testimony via Zoom because I was in Boston at the time for the mobilization for our sister in Islam, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, the fourth mobilization. Actually, it was, the fourth mobilization in the series of 5. And Alhamdulillah, the testimony that I gave was on both Dr. Afia Siddiqui and also on Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, 2 Muslim political prisoners here in the United States. At the end of that tribunal, the U.S. was found guilty of genocide on all 5 counts. On all 5 counts. And the tribunal, which took place, I believe, over a 3-day period in New York City, involving, international activists and jurists. In fact, there was one jurist. In fact, she may have been the chief jurist out of South Africa, who was a part of that tribunal. It was the areas of focus during that tribunal was across the board. It was political prisoners. It had to do with the environment. It had to do with policing in America. And on this issue of policing, this is something that we want to focus our attention on today, because today's topic for discussion is on the struggle for police reform. The struggle for police reform and how this struggle must continue in America. Now, with that being said, our special guests for today's conversation are 2 blood brothers, Justin Blake and Jacob Blake Sr. Right now, we have one of the brothers with us. In fact, a bit of an explanation is in order. The broadcast had to be moved up today because of the need for the president of South Africa to deliver a special address. And so our broadcast has been moved up by 30 minutes, and which necessitated some last minute changes on the part of all 3 of us. Justin is not yet with us, but we've sent a message to him that he can join whenever is convenient for him. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll still continue to have a full 1-hour broadcast. And on that note, I want to welcome my brother Jacob, or as we say in Muslim land, Yaqub, to today's platform.
Salam alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother. Good to have you with us. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, brother. Good to see you always, brother.
And I know that you have been very, very busy. You have been very busy.
Alhamdulillah, we've been busy, brother. And as you stated, we're fighting for police reform.
Yes.
And without police reform, we end up on the wrong side of the stick. So
That's right.
we're trying with the Families United is our foundation that me and Breonna Taylor's aunt, Bianca Austin, have set up to support families that go through police brutality and
Hmm.
suffer from various police injustices.
Yes.
So as the Families United, we show up to support um, the families and give them. We have a pool of lawyers. We have psychological backup so that we can refer these individuals to psychologists all over the United States. I've
Alhamdulillah.
been, alhamdulillah, from California to Delaware, literally in the last few weeks across the United States. We stopped in Kansas City, where for the first time in 147 years, brother, a
Wait,
police
just
officer was charged.
you just wait for a minute. We're gonna come back to that, brother, because
Okay.
that's a very important nugget of conversation that we
It's
want to
very,
explore.
very
Very
important.
important.
Yes. Yes.
Before we go there, though, let me say this: you, your brother, the families that you all have bonded with to form this organization that's doing this work, you are a reflection of that sterling quote from the great freedom fighter, the abolitionist Frederick Douglass, who said, a man, and of course this equally applies to a woman, is worked on by what he works on. He may carve out his circumstances, but his circumstances will carve him out as well. And you all are a sterling example of this timeless quote
Alhamdulillah.
that is rooted in truth. We are worked on by what we work on. You know, many of the family members that you all have invited to be a part of this organization, to channel grief, to channel enormous pain into power for change. You know, these are folk who, prior to most of them, the vast majority of them, prior to this tragedy visiting them, were not activists, but they have been forced to become activists as a result of this experience. And they have been honed in the process of how to be effective as activists for much needed social and political change in this country. But with that said, if I remember correctly from a previous conversation that we had, your family has an interesting history in the realm of activism. I'd
Yes.
like for you to share what that, in fact, I want to take this because this is Justin calling. Let me just take this.
That's my son up there. And that's my pet right there.
Two things. I want you to share some information on your family's history, just a little bit of information on your family's background, because you have activism within your family. And also share with the audience who you are, who your son is, and what is it that brought you to where you are today.
Okay, first of all, my great grandfather was a Garveyite,
Mhm.
and he believed that we should all go back to Africa. And Then my father, Reverend Jacob S. Blake, was a civil rights activist. He was a minister in the AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal. And he marched for open housing in Illinois. He marched from Selma to Montgomery. He marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. My father had no fear. Only the Creator did he fear. And he fought for civil rights at an early age. My son was Jacob Blake, who was shot 7 times in the back by a police officer in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I am his father. And it threw me into activism wholeheartedly with I got it with no chaser, straight with no chaser. And I had to go straight in and defend and uphold my son. It it felt right and natural because I've watched my father do it my whole life. So I actually understood what I had to do, and I asked for Allah to give me strength. And I said, "Mashallah, it's your will," and we are here today, and we continue to fight, brother. We do not stop. It's a continuum of a fight that I did not choose. Allah felt fit for this to choose us, fit for for it to choose our family. And I, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, all praises, because there would be no me without Allah giving me the understanding and the patience and being able to do what I do for my son in his name. And my brother, of course, we grew together younger. We grew up and we understood what we had to do. So it was only Allah that chose me and him, and there he is. Right there.
And how is your son doing now? Jacob Blake Jr.
He's doing better. He's doing better. He's dealing with what he has to deal with, but he has a great way about himself. So his demeanor, his shape of mind is wonderful, but he's still suffering from paralysis.
Yes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal him, and may Allah ta'ala heal your family and the many others who have been impacted by that horrendous act of violent illegality that took place at the hands of that police officer who was not punished in that horrific case. We have with us now our brother Justin Blake. And walaikum salam, my brother. Look, you look like you are in a situation that I have been in the past, where I've had to go on in a vehicle.
Hey, look, brother, I hope you have us on this interview, because you know how we put in the work. The work never stops. We started, Bennett, handed off to our father. It's in our DNA, brother. So I'm leaving this meeting that prevents violence in Inglewood and Chicago. So we work real locally as well as nationally, and we want to be international. Every fight that has to do with our people and justice, the Blake family wants to be involved in, dear brother.
You know, I was just sharing with your brother Jacob, or Yaqub. I was just sharing with him that sterling quote of Frederick Douglass: "A man is worked on by what he works on. He may carve out his circumstances, but his circumstances will carve him out as well." Your family,
yes, sir.
And especially,
yes, sir.
especially you and your brother on the front line of the Blake family, are examples of that sterling quote. You know, we are worked on by what we work on.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah for the work that you all are doing.
Man, brother,
Go ahead.
when we initially went down to where my nephew was shot at in Wisconsin, Kenosha, when we very first arrived, Allah put it on our mind to say we weren't just there for little Jake, for our little Jake, but we were there for all the little Jakes around the world and around this nation and around the world. So we weren't just fighting, and we're not just fighting presently for just our nephew, but we're fighting for all the little nephews out there that can make a chance, that can change this world. All they need is opportunity. And as grown, mature men, we're going to make sure our legacy says that we gave everything we had to make that happen, to make it a reality.
Alhamdulillah. You know, brothers, what happened to your son and your nephew sparked a reaction throughout the country and drew attention in different parts of the world. I mean, it caused a visceral reaction within parts of the nation and the international community. Part of that reaction was in the form of protests. Some of the protests got out of hand, you know, but all of the protests that took place in terms of the reason for them, you know, that angry reaction that came from the community, especially from our tribal community, was more than justified. In Kenosha, as part of that reaction, there was another incident that grabbed national and international attention. It involved a young, underaged boy, 17 at the time, who crossed state lines illegally with a high-powered weapon, an AR-15.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he ended up taking the lives of 2 people and did serious injury to a third. And just a few days ago, Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty of all of the charges brought against him, which resulted in another visceral reaction in parts of America. Although it should be noted, for most of us, certainly for me, I predicted that he was probably going to be found not guilty.
A lot of people felt that way, brother.
Huh?
A lot of people in our family and system and circle felt that way, that it was sort of going to go that way. But we weren't fighting necessarily for him. We were fighting for, if they could shoot 2 white boys down in the street and go free, can you imagine what they would do to us? With all those millions of people that marched in 2020, could you imagine what they would do to us?
That's
so
right.
That was part of our reason.
I wanted to get both of your reactions to that. To that.
Yeah.
I gave the whole thing no energy. I took myself far away. I gave myself to Cameron Lamb and his family. I actually did not go to Wisconsin at all. I went to Kansas City. I felt that he was going to be exonerated. I knew when the judge threw out the weapon charge. With no weapon, there is no crime.
There's no case. Right.
Yeah.
So now the judge is under a federal investigation that he had misconduct in that trial. We also saw the misconduct.
Right.
We heard the misconduct. But you want to tell us that we are paranoid, that we overextend and overreact. but we're constantly slapped. When you get slapped and punched and pummeled, you get to the point where you cannot take it anymore. So the reaction, the visceral reaction of the people in the public is because they can't take it anymore, brother. They
Yeah.
they just, violence begets violence. And if you constantly violate a people, their only reaction is what the action is that's been taken on them. They don't they, your emotions are a powerful thing. You can either use it, but some people lose it.
Yeah.
And you know what are we supposed to be able we're supposed to be able to react accordingly, but you can't act accordingly. How does that work? They can act any kind of way they want to act in a barbaric manner, and we're supposed to be accepting of the treatment that we get. I, it is There's no logic in their way of. There's no logic. I took logic. I got an A in that class, and it's no logical explanation for the way that we as brown people in the United States of America are treated.
And have been treated for centuries. I mean, this is not
400
something
years,
that's
400 years.
yeah. I mean, this has been a struggle, a human rights struggle, man, that's been going on for centuries, man. And well, we are seeing some incremental progress. I mean, you mentioned Cameron. In fact, why don't you expound on what's going on with Cameron, brother?
Brother, for the first time in 147 years, a police officer was charged with the murder of a black man in Kansas City, Missouri. So the family called Families United and asked us to come and represent and give them strength. That's what we do. So we went, me and Travis Caines went to Kansas City. Jolly Ginger was supposed to go with us. He had to cancel. So me and Travis Caines went to Kansas City, sat in the courtroom, brother, and listened to how not only did this police department tamper with evidence, and it came out in the trial. Not only did they tamper with evidence, brother, and change reports to fit what they wanted it to fit, they tampered and manipulated a dead body and moved it to the way they wanted it to move, placed a weapon there on the ground. So do not tell me what police departments do not do. That case set precedent to show what they do. So I'm not telling you. See, our Caucasian counterparts are used to saying, "Oh, that doesn't happen. The police don't do." We've been trying to tell them that for years. Now we set precedent. We've set precedent. It happens, and that this case is so important to directly affect 10 cases that are going on right now.
In Kansas?
No, 10 cases around the United States.
Oh, around the United States. Okay.
That are going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's up to us to be vigilant, to stand we cannot allow. We've gained so much momentum in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
That we must continue to use all our resources to fight, to find we're just trying to level the level their justice system. We're trying to level it.
Yes.
Because it's not Mohammedanian law. This is the justice system. There's two justice systems in the United States. One is for my Caucasian counterparts, where the woman is blindfolded, holding the scale, she can't see. The other system for us, she has on bifocals, and she sees you before anything else. Black people go to court and have to prove their innocence. Our Caucasian counterparts are innocent until they're proven guilty. We have to prove that we are innocent.
Yeah, the inverse, guilty
Right.
until proven innocent. Justin, you know, we just spoke about this case in Kansas. There's another case in Georgia that has lifted the optimism that real change can happen in the most unlikeliest places. I mean, you in the Ahmaud Arbery case, you had another jury that was comprised of 11 whites and 1 black. And yet that one, and it involved 3 defendants, one of whom was an ex-police officer with a special relationship with the powers that be within that area. In fact, it was so special that the then head of the district attorney's office pulled some strings to try to protect them, and did successfully do that until video ended up being released that showed what actually happened, and then they had no choice but to file charges against them. And now that former district attorney is herself under investigation. I believe charges have been brought against her. But in this case of the wrongful death, the lynching, the 21st century lynching of Ahmaud Arbery at the hands of these 3 white individuals, that outcome was delightfully different. What do you have to say about that, my brother?
Well, thank you, dear brother. Our nephew Jacob Blake never got a court hearing, never got in front of a jury. His judge and jury would have 7 shots in his back in front of his 3 children. And so it's bittersweet for us to see other families going on, because we want to love and support them. But it's a bittersweet feeling, dear brother, when the president of the United States made commitments and pledges to my brother, Bianca Austin, Breonna Taylor's aunt, some of the Floyd families, and we haven't gotten that. We feel betrayed. So one victory isn't good enough. It's wonderful that their families were able to rest and they got somewhat of a just sentence, but their loved one will never come back through the door again. And so we need to start at the White House and get a response from the White House. Why have they, when we were the people that put them in office, we personally, along with some other organizations in Wisconsin, turned a red state blue. Wisconsin was a red state, family, and we helped turn to blue. My brother, Bianca Austin, were all over the United States, and some of the Floyd families with our brother, getting people to come out that supported our different families to get this man in office, because he said he was going to be the one to straighten some things out for us. And he has not, and we feel terribly betrayed, and the world should know that this president has not honored his word to our families. And so my brother, like I said, Bianca Austin, they're all over the United States, Reverend Al, Uncle Jesse, Zali, and many others, the brother from Minnesota. We're intensely out there trying to support every family, every issue. We came back to Chicago, to the federal building to stand with our brothers and sisters when they put their hands on them on the border. So what is that showing you? We are going to be the nucleus of uniting solidarity around all our people under the red, black, and green. If we move all together, Ghanaians, Jamaicans, Nigerians, Haitians, and African Americans, we don't have to ask nobody for nothing. We can tell them what we want.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of politicians in this political system, you rightfully issue criticism of the occupant of the highest political office in the land.
Yes, sir.
What about those at the interim level, that those beneath the office of the presidency, those in the U.S. Congress, both houses? Have you been able to exert any pressure around any of the congressional leaders or senators on these issues of the need for police reform and accountability?
We've been able to talk with Congress people. We've talked with senators. We've also established a group called the Justice Reform Group, and we're lobbying to change laws. We're lobbying those people to be accountable. Like my brother spoke, the president, not on the telephone, but in my face, sat with us and made certain claims and certain promises. And none of this has come to fruition as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Asians have an Asian Protection Act. Well, brother, for 400 years, how come we don't have a Protection Act? How come we're not protected?
Mm-hmm.
How come we're hunted? What you said we were gonna get a level playing field, Mr. President, and we're calling on brothers all over the world, because what they do not want is for the brown man to unite and really set up what type of powerful brotherhood we can have, inshallah. We can unite and become so powerful. The 300 trillion that we spend in this economy is like a small country, brother. Bigger than a small country. Why don't we use our power? What is wrong? It was chattel slavery so diabolical that it broke the spines and the wills of our people to fight? Is this what we're dealing with still in 2021? We have to stand up, brother. We have to stand up. We fight for those who fight for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take a fight out there for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't stand up to fight with me. I stand alongside you to fight. We stand shoulder to shoulder. Me and my brother are shoulder to shoulder in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
We and our enthusiasm and our strength and our vigor we use in all religious men are not righteous, and
Right.
all righteous men are not religious.
Mm-hmm.
We're righteous religious men that are fighting for the black and brown people of the world, not the black and brown people next to each other. Of the world, brother. Of the world, brother. And we demand to be recognized. We demand that they show how versatile our people are.
Yes.
They play us that we have one black leader. This the leader for the black. No, there's not one leader, brother. We are diverse as our counterparts. But we're played and showed and they try to manipulate us into being what it's time, brother. The time is now for us to show who we really are.
I agree. This is an opportune moment, and I have been arguing with certain members of our leadership class, both within the Muslim community and outside of the Muslim community here in the United States of America. I've been arguing for more than a year now that this is a very opportune moment in our history. The convergence of this this global pandemic, this virus, coupled with the reaction to the murder of the brother in Minnesota,
George Floyd.
George Floyd, the reaction to the murder of George Floyd. I mean, that reaction that took place here in America and abroad, it wasn't just here. I think the convergence of those two things just opened up a window of opportunity, a window of awareness, a window of communal sensitivity that has provided us with an opportunity that is unlike any I have seen in my years of activism here in the U.S. Another example.
We wouldn't have been able to assemble, what was it, Justin, 4 or 5 states to go to governors' houses and beat a drum for Julius Jones. They were going to take Julius Jones and kill an innocent, just kill him, brother.
That's right.
They were going to, the governor didn't give him clemency until the last minute when the parole board,
that's right,
advised him to exonerate this man, and he still had that man on death watch. What is wrong with America, brother? What is wrong? Why are we still over and we're fight, man? We fight, brother. I wake up ready for a fight. You understand? My brother and me, we go to sleep ready for a fight. If I see his number in the middle of the night, now I'm up and I'm sitting on the side of the bed with my keys in my hand, because I know eventually, brother, we have to be prepared for any and everything all the time. And that's why I ask Allah for strength. Yes. Because without the strength that Allah gives me, I would not be able to keep going and going and going. Like the Energizer Bunny, brother. Sometimes I'll sit and I'll be like, did I go to sleep? Have I been to sleep? I don't remember if I went, because we're constantly, in the last 3 weeks, we've been in 7 cities. And that's just an example of what Families United do. That's what we're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. It's what we signed up to do.
Yes.
You know, yes. And I just want the world to understand that we are not just fighting for one person. We are fighting for everyone, man. Nelson Mandela did not fight for one person. He sat there and took what they put on him. He took what they put on him, and then, like a phoenix, rised out of the flames. We must understand that is our duty. Sometimes you take and then you rise up. Now the rise up must begin.
Indeed. And this is for our non-Muslim viewers and listeners. And as a reminder to some of our, or many of our Muslim brethren who may have forgotten what is required of us by our Islam. This is as fundamental, striving for justice is as fundamental to Islamic theology, to the foundational principles of our deen, as are the 5 salat, the 5 prayers. Allah Ta'ala has said in the Quran, stand firmly. This is the translation of the meaning of this verse. Stand firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even if it be against yourselves, your parents or your kin, or whether it be against rich or poor, for Allah can best protect both. And do not follow the lusts of your hearts, lest you swerve. And if you distort justice or decline to do justice, know that Allah is ever mindful of what you do. And our beloved prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he said, when you see an evil action, you must change it with your hand. If you cannot do so, with your tongue, the jihad of the tongue. If you cannot do so, detest it within your heart. And that is the weakest degree of faith. And so what you and your brother and the many who are aligned with you are doing is an expression of what is required of us as a result of our deen, as a result of our Islam. And I want to, I'm glad that you mentioned, Julius Jones's removal from death row, because we all know that if it had not been for the massive demonstrations, if it had not been for the massive and sustained presence of those who
he would have
been toast, brother. Like so many others, he would have been toast.
And how many, you ask yourself, how many innocent brothers are sitting in there? You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
I watched a homicide in Kansas City 9 seconds from the time that officer got out of the car, from the time he pulled up, 9 seconds to the time he killed that young man. He killed him and was found guilty. He killed that young man.
Yeah. And
this type of behavior is more the norm than the abnormal. It's the norm. When it comes to Black and brown people, our lives are in danger at a traffic stop, brother.
That's right.
At that brother in Minnesota, his children and his wife were in the back seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they killed him.
That's right.
In front of him. So we have to change. Something must change. And the world has to understand what we are up against in this country. And if we keep our mouths shut and we do not stand up and say what is going on, then we deserve what we get.
That's right.
But if we stand up with the sword of Ali and the shield of Allah, and we refuse to be taken anymore, we gonna make a stand like they made at the Battle of Barda. Alhamdulillah, we're gonna make a stand right here. And we refuse to be pushed back anymore. This is where you need to understand we are. And we all need to understand I have a shield and I have a sword. And it is time for us to stand and be prepared, man.
Yeah.
Because Allah gave us this strength. He gave us this knowledge.
Yeah. And with it comes obligation.
With that comes obligation.
Absolutely. Brother Justin, on this note of this moment that we're in, I want to get your thoughts on this, my brother. Just recently, and I know both of you are well aware of this, just recently an exoneration took place, a historic exoneration in New York City of two men that were charged unjustly 56 years ago with the assassination of El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, Malcolm X. Two men who for over 20 years, for 2 decades, were imprisoned wrongfully, who maintained their innocence, who had alibis that were credible when they were accused 56 years ago, who had people that were able to testify that those two men couldn't have been there. In fact, one of the many witnesses was a friend of, a friend of mine, a sister from who was formerly a part of the Nation of Islam, a good sister who lives in upstate New York, who said that one of the men who was wrongfully accused was with her and her family at the time that this assassination took place. He couldn't have been there. These men were set up. It's now proven that they were set up by the elements who were part and parcel of Cointelpro. They were set up. But these men were wrongfully accused and they and their families had to bear this for over a half century. Now they have been exonerated, but one is now gone. He's deceased. Just one of these men is still alive. Brings me to and I believe that too, Allah is the best of planners. That too is part and parcel of this historic moment that we're in as a nation. I believe it is part and parcel of it. But with that being said, that there is now a bill that was introduced by Bobby Rush, a former Black Panther who's been in the U.S. House of Representatives for a good number of years, representing one of the districts in Illinois. Bobby Rush. He introduced a piece of legislation titled the Cointelpro Full Disclosure Act in May of this year. Now, in short, this bill requires the U.S. government to release and publicly disclose within 6 months of its passing all records related to Cointelpro, the operation of Cointelpro that the Federal Bureau of Investigation engaged in, along with rogue elements within various police departments throughout the nation, unless, this is, in my humble opinion, an unfortunate potential get-out card, unless disclosure would cause harm, quote unquote. Now, that can be interpreted in so many ways, but just the mere fact that this has been introduced and has been introduced in this time that we're living in, where we have all of this focus upon the justice system, all of this focus upon policing at the federal level, at the state level, at the county level, at the city level. What are your thoughts on this bill that has been introduced and the environment, this atmosphere that it has been introduced within? What are your thoughts on this, Brother Justin? And then we'll get your thoughts as well, Brother Yaqub.
Well, that is an excellent question, Ak. What we truly believe is that, number one, that shows that there is a systemic thread of racism that runs from the White House through all the different government, policing and FBI and all those kind of people. There was papers released maybe about 5 to 8 years ago that showed that the federal government was involved in Chavez's death, Martin Luther King's death, and Brother Malcolm's death. These papers were released under the Freedom of Acts paper like 5 to 8 years ago, as we recall. So we know that the federal government and other governments have played a role in all our different tries for justice around this nation. And that's why we asked for Chief Malik Jeff Ford to be released. There's many people, Chairman Fred Hampton was murdered in his home, 100 and some shots. And if they didn't murder you, they put you in jail. So Chief Malik Jeff Ford is more of a political prisoner than anybody ever realizes, brother. They attacked our city of Chicago. This brother was doing great work, and they made sure that he was removed. If he were to be in this city at this particular time, it would be quiet as a church mouse. We wouldn't have the violence that we have now. We wouldn't have the senseless death that we have now. When there are critical players, they bomb us like they did in Philadelphia. What was that? The 80-79 when they bombed that house in Philadelphia. So we know you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, move.
So move, thank you. So anytime we think outside of what the white man has made for us, and you brothers made some comments early, and I want to stand to correct oneself, but you need to understand this side. The program isn't messed up. It's running just like they wanted it to. It's running just as they designed it to run, which kept them on top and everybody else way. So we haven't had a chance, and minor numbers of people achieve great grand success in this country that looks like us. But do you know how many more would achieve greatness in this country if there wasn't a boot on our neck at every turn? They jack us up in mortgages. They jack us up when we buy a car. We can't get money to stay in school, so we end up dropping out and owing somebody some money for an education you didn't even complete. So this whole system was made to incarcerate our people. When slavery was over, the biggest employer of African descendants was the federal people, the post office and other federal offices. If they didn't have that employment, truly white America hasn't employed us in their scheme of things. Look at their economy. We're not in it. So this is a time where we should be taking a look at ourselves, figuring out how we can circle the wagons, and how can we create an economic engine and an economic and a voting block. That's what we need to be considering now. We need to be concerned with our issues. Pardon the body. We need to be concerned with our issues as much as Asian Americans are concerned with their issues. Our Jewish brothers are concerned about their issues, and our white people concerned about their issues. We need to be forming councils and governments within the governments that specifically deal with the issues of African descendants. We don't need nobody else's approval, brother. We just need to hug ourselves. We just need to love ourselves. We need to appreciate ourselves, and the answers will be found at that table.
Your thoughts, Brother Yaqub?
First of all, brother, I want to apologize because when you had the what was it, the rally for Brother Jamil,
Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, yes,
hey,
former
man,
H-Tab Brown,
or right, I was in Delaware the same day with the Moses family, and I told you I was going to try my darndest to get over there to you. I apologize that I just couldn't get away. But that brother knows that I love him and respect him, man. You understand?
Yes.
That brother means a lot to me. Brother Malik, Chief Malik, means a lot to me. These brothers are prisoners of a society that was set up not to include us. This system was not inclusive. It didn't include us. After slavery, there was incarceration. That was the new slavery. You know, so it was set up to incarcerate and get what they could get out of incarceration. How can we be 16% of the total population supposedly in the United States, but over 80% of the population of the people that are incarcerated? Now, until you explain that, I'm a numbers man. Chemistry is my thing. I was blessed, alhamdulillah, to be able to do this. How can you explain those numbers to me, brother? How can we be the majority of the people incarcerated, but only 16% of the total population? So when you try to understand these things, in releasing those records, John Bird in Chicago used to spray you with a water hose and then connect two ends of a battery, you know, a positive and a negative, to a car battery. Then he would connect the other two ends to your scrotums. And then he would get you to admit to something that you probably never even knew and incarcerate those men. So don't tell me what they need to release, but they're not going to, because they don't want you to know who the men that were actually sent at El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan, who they were. They don't want you to know that Hoover and Hoover's people have done an injustice to black and brown, to our indigenous brown people of the United States. What was truly done, we witnessed it. So now you're asking me to be genteel, to be gentle, to be cool with how I react. Brother, I don't possess that type. I can't, because they've look at how they lynched Ahmaud Arbery. These weren't policemen. These were just regular dudes.
Vigilantes.
That we're
Yeah.
vigilantes.
Yeah.
Brother, my life has been threatened for a year and a half. Why do they want to kill me so bad? Because I don't sit down? Because I don't stop fighting?
Yeah.
So they want to kill the will. You understand? They want to kill the will. They want you to be fearful of them. I only fear the will of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
I fear no man that looks like me, that walks and talks and bleeds like me.
Mm-hmm.
We can no longer fear. We can't fear anything, brother.
Okay, my brothers, listen up. I knew that this broadcast was going to move fast. I knew it was. We're at the end of it now. So what I want to do is give both of you 1 minute. I want you to take 1 minute to just give whatever final message you want to convey to the listening and viewing audiences that are watching this live, as well as those who will see it later. Whatever you want to say in 1 minute, and please say something again about the organization that you all have started. Brother Justin, will begin with you. You're muted, my brother. Okay.
I'm so sorry. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, dear brother. Thank you. We just want to make it a poignant issue that we Families United are going to be in every state in the union. We're going to be eventually starting to go around the world. We want to unite everybody from the diaspora, Pan-Africans, everybody around the world, brother, to understand if we move together, the injustices will be corrected overnight. If we move together, the economy that hasn't been kind to us will be kind together. If we move together and selling black products to African descendant people on the other side of the world, that we can build an economy together. We can build an economic engine together. We have a unique chance to move together. And it's never been done because we've never had phones like this that could connect us instantly around one solidary issue, and that is the betterment and the higher quality of living that we want our people to have around the world. The injustices that we see, we can conquer if we stand united, brother. There's nothing that we can't do. We have the intelligence, we have the back and the muscle power and the labor. All we need to do is get over the colonialism that sets down upon our mind and smothers out all the good stuff. We have to begin by loving oneself, whether it's Allah or whoever you pray to for your higher being. Get prayed up, start eating well, and tie up your boots and get to work. We got work to do. And the more we can unite ourselves here in the United States, we'll be ready to be a part of an international structure that will bring freedom all around this country and all around the world. Big ups to the red, black, and green. Unity now, one Africa.
Okay, brother Yakub, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts, brother, is thefamiliesunited.com. That's for Families United. We're Families United on Facebook. We're Families United on Instagram. The Justice Reform Group, that's on Instagram and Facebook. We must change laws. We must alter and enhance policing, psychological backup for police. They need a liaison to go out when these individuals have mental episodes. They cannot be. A policeman is not qualified. A policeman needs. My daughter is a beautician. She's gonna get mad because I said they have a certain word they use. She must recertify yearly, or she cannot keep her business. We must have these policemen recertify on a yearly basis. I had to recertify. I was a water plant operator for years, and every year you have to recertify your license. So if they're out there and their most important thing is to protect and serve, why not recertify? Recertify the police.
Okay, my brothers, I want to thank both of you for joining us today. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to have you back soon to continue this conversation. So may Allah ta'ala bless the remainder of your day. What I want to do at this point is I want to conclude today's broadcast with a sharing of a testimonial concerning one of our dear sisters who was buried yesterday, one of the youngest daughters of El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, Sister Malika Saban Shabazz. She was buried yesterday. So I want to conclude today's broadcast with a little testimonial on her, inshallah ta'ala. And this comes to us courtesy of Dr. Yanis Mayhill. When I saw this, I read it, I was touched by it. And I said, inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to share it with others. He wrote, while still in her mother's womb with her twin sister, Malik, she indirectly witnessed the assassination of her father, Malcolm X, on February 21st, 1965, at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, New York. Even though she was still in her womb, the shock felt by her mother that day certainly marked this being in the process of becoming and placed her life in a cycle of struggle. Born on September 30th, 1965, a few minutes before her sister Malik, her mother Betty put her directly into El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz's legacy by giving her the female version of his Muslim first name. In addition to her name, Malika, she received, just like her twin sister, the name Saban, in tribute to the Saudi friend of Malcolm X, named Mohammed Surur Saban, who was at the time the General Secretary of the Muslim World League and had supported El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. In the 1990s, Malika was very active in public life to honor her father's legacy, not only by upholding Malcolm X's memory, but also by promoting his values and struggles. She thus made many conferences with several organizations and universities on various topics such as racism, multiculturalism, African American issues, education, youth, self-reliance, and others, in addition to the subject of Malcolm X. Among many quotes of Malika Shabazz, she said, for instance, that multicultural education, which teaches respect for differences, was a way to eliminate racism, by adding that there was still a Eurocentrism which inferiorized some cultures, and that it was absolutely necessary to go beyond this mindset. She also recalled during a conference at the University of West Florida in 1993 that it was necessary to study history. She said, quote, "Study your history. Racism is the pressing issue confronting America, not to mention the world," adding that racism is an outright offense to human dignity, end quote. And that while supremacy remained a global cancer, she also noted, quote, "We are all suffering from oppression stemming from an international white power structure, which is based in London, Paris, Washington, D.C., and so forth," end quote. The education of youth, especially African American youth, was also at the heart of her concerns. She said, quote, "The youth are the saviors of the future, and you have a great responsibility ahead to learn the history of Black people to create a new unbreakable foundation, a revolutionary floor plan for the future," end quote. Now, this observation reminded this commentator of the words of Frantz Fanon in his celebrated work, Wretched of the Earth, wherein he said, "Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it." Dr. Mayhill continues, aware of some misuses of her father's legacy, she did not hesitate to say, quote, "At one time, the media made him a violent racist, a crazy person full of hate. And now everything we eat and wear is X. Gum, chips, sneakers, jackets, hats." She even said once on the same issue, quote, "I can walk anywhere and see a Malcolm X cap being sold. These are being sold by people who wouldn't openly embrace my father, but will make $1 off of him," end quote. Her dedication to support the rights of Black people led her to create in 1990 an organization for Black students, the National Organization of African Students in America, whose mission was to provide mentoring and support services to high school and university students to prepare them to live in a multicultural society. According to a source, the organization had 600 members in July of 1992. Malika Shabazz was also dedicated to promoting unity among her people and fighting division. Invited to speak at an event celebrating the memory of Martin Luther King, she affirmed that, quote, "The media had the people believe that they had to choose between one or the other, Malcolm X or King. This is not true. You can love both, have both," end quote. Close to her mother, Dr. Betty Shabazz, she was deeply affected by her death and notably declared, quote, "When she died, it was like our world ending," but was delighted that her mother was able from this point to find again her beloved husband. She said, "One of the things that makes me able to accept her death is because she's with my father," quote unquote. She named her daughter Betty Bahia after her mother, Bahia being Betty Shabazz's Muslim name. Her daughter, who, by the way, she loved so much. After the death of her mother, the birth of her daughter was a great source of hope and love. Her love and gratefulness for her parents and what they gave her were at the heart of Malika's commitment. Quote, "I always consider my parents when I do what I do. It's because of my parents I am who I am," she told a conference in 1992 in Indianapolis. In the early 1990s, she did not hesitate to denounce her country's foreign policy by criticizing the war in Iraq as a good heir of Malcolm X and his anti-imperialist commitment. Her dedication to serve people and God, to promote justice and peace, to honor Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz's legacy, but also to promote her own way, vision, and personality show us how much she was an exceptional human being. Malika's passing on November 22nd is a new hardship for the Shabazz family and a great loss for so many people. For African Americans, for the Muslim community, and beyond that, for all human beings who want to end oppression and promote justice. As Brother Malcolm X said, and this is one of my favorite quotes, "I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I'm for justice, no matter who it is for or against. I am a human being, first and foremost, and as such, I'm for whoever and whatever benefits humanity as a whole." This is a quote that reflects the mentality of a conscious and committed Muslim, brothers and sisters. In closing, this brother wrote, Malika Shabazz, 1960, born in 1965, whose death took place just a few days ago in 2021, is in our hearts and prayers. May Allah have mercy on Sister Malika Shabazz and bless her soul. May Allah forgive her sins and grant her the highest in paradise. Reunite her with her parents and continue to bless and protect the Honorable Shabazz family. Ameen. I echo that dua. Let me also conclude with this, again in the spirit of that quote we just shared from El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. When we deal with topics like this, brothers and sisters, friends of Salam Media and the Afia Foundation, when we deal with topics like this, they can be sometimes in the minds and in the hearts of people who hear and view these types of conversation. They can be very polarizing. They can be very challenging. But let me remind our brothers and sisters, both within the African American or within the African tribe and outside, that Islam emphasizes the fact that we all come from one source, from the couple known in history, in religious history, as Adam and Eve. We come from one single source of parentage. Allah says in the Quran, we created you from a single pair of a male and female and made you into nations and tribes for you to know each other, not for you to despise one another. So when we are dealing with issues like this, and sometimes it sounds as if we just have, some of us who are commenting on these issues, we have a disdain, a hatred, just a visceral, reactionary, negative response to anyone who is not of our tribe. Just let me assure you that this is not the case. As Imam Jamil Abdullah El-Amin, the former H-Rap Brown, would say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. All black folk are not on the right side of these issues of justice. And all white folk are not on the wrong side of these issues of justice. We have got to work harder to bring people of like mind, of like heart, of like spirit, who love truth and who love justice, and who are willing to work together shoulder to shoulder to help each of our lands, be it America, be it South Africa, be it Britain, be it France, be it Egypt, be it Saudi Arabia, be it any part of the world, Central or South America, help our nations live up to the better part of itself. May Allah bless us to come together and to do just that. And with that, we conclude with the ayah from the noble Quran, Suratul Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi kusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati. Wa tawassaw bil haqq. Wa tawassaw bis sabr. Which means in translation, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages, verily humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patiently persevere in the struggle for justice. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.